From 12 News, this is Newsmakers.
Rhode Island removed 60,000 inactive voters from the voter rolls last year, and a new round of removals is on the horizon. That's just one of the tasks election officials are handling in this major election year. Another, how to ensure campaigns are submitting valid signatures when trying to get their candidates on the ballot after the signature scandal that jolted last year's congressional race. Our guest this week on Newsmakers, Secretary of State Gregg Amore. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White, alongside 12 News Politics editor Ted Nesi, Secretary of State Gregg Amore. Good to have you back in the program. Welcome.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
I want to start with that voter list maintenance that I talked about at the top of the program. This is where your office removes inactive voters from the voter rolls. Rhode Islanders might start seeing something in their mailbox in the coming weeks. Walk us through the process, if you could.
They will. It's really the most important thing we do around voter list maintenance is that elections mail. So in 2020, every registered Rhode Island voter received a mail ballot application. That was elections mail. And that's how we were able to remove 60+ thousand people from the voter list. This will be the same process. So if you have not voted in 5 years or made any adjustment to your information online, or if you have moved, and we know if you've moved because we get information from ERIC, the Electronic Registration Information Center, we get information from the Postal Service. If you've moved, we're going to send an elections mail to you. If that is returned, you are made inactive, and you're inactive for two.
Like return to sender.
Return to us, yes, return to us. And we would ask Rhode Islanders, if they get elections mail and it's not addressed to a person who lives at that residence, please give that back to the Postal Service, give it to your local canvassing authority so that we can maintain these lists well.
So 60,000 was a big number because of COVID and the mail ballot. Do you have a sense as to how many mailers are going out this year?
You know, I don't. I can tell you that it's a fair number because we know it's anybody that has not voted over the course of 5 years, and we know that it's anybody that moved. And there's pretty good transiency, so it's a fair number. It's not 700+ thousand like it was, but it's a fair number.
So the timeline here is if someone hasn't voted in 5 years, they're going to be put on this mailing list. They're going to get a mail. So if that mailer is not returned to your office, and that person does not vote in the next 2 federal elections, right, then they are considered inactive, and you can, by law, remove them from the list. If I do the math on that, for some people, that's 9 years of inactivity that they will remain on the voter list. Is that too long?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 9 years because we're talking about the 60,000 that we already had. So that interrupted that span of time. But yeah, I mean, I think we should do these mailings more frequently. And we're committed to doing that. You know, there's a cost associated with that. Sure. But we're committed to doing that because I think, you know, we want to open access to the ballot, but we also want to make sure our voting lists are accurate. And so we're committed to continuing these mailings pretty consistently so we can get a handle on who is active and who is inactive.
You actually, it was interesting, we had Ken Block, the former Republican candidate who has a book out about his work with the Trump campaign where he kind of debunked some of Trump's thoughts about what had happened with the election. You wrote a nice review of it, even though you're a Democrat. He's been in various parties, but among them a Republican. Block likes to say that Democrats like the first half of his book and Republicans like the second half, because the second half is things about that could be cleaned up in how we maintain our elections. And anything you took away from that, or you thought he made a good point that you're thinking about in your world, or that you're already working on?
Yeah, and I'm not sure Republicans like the second half because many of the proposals that Ken makes are federal proposals. And many Republicans do not want to federalize any part of the election system. The Constitution gives that to the states, and Republicans believe in that. In fact, lots of Republicans, even my colleagues across the country, push back on federal support financially for elections. So I'm not sure if Republicans like the second half, but there are some good ideas in there. And one of them is transparency. And I know that Secretary Gorbea had a different position than I do in regard to full information in regard to the voter list, birth date, name, address. And so we're providing all of that now. So that's one of Ken's sticking points, and I agree with that. He also makes the case for a national voter ID. Again, that would require federal law, but that's a good idea because you would carry that with you from birth to death. When you became a citizen, you'd get that ID, and then as the transiency that we know occurs continues to occur, that makes it easier to track voters.
You know how voter ID hits the ears of some Democrats, particularly progressives. What would you say to them?
Yeah, it's the same as a Social Security number. So you're ID'd by that Social Security number in many, many ways. This would be the same thing.
I want to talk about a bill that State Senator Lou DePalma filed that would, in layman's terms, prevent one campaign or PAC from using artificial intelligence-generated audio or video against another candidate within 90 days of an election unless there's a clear disclosure that it's AI. In other words, it wants to prevent deep fakes.
Right.
Do you support this legislation?
Yeah, we stamped the legislation, so we are extremely supportive and testified on behalf of it.
Is there any potential conflict between, protecting political speech, which is high value, free speech, protected by the Supreme Court in multiple decisions, and legislation like this that could cut into that?
Yeah, I think it's disclosure more than anything else, and it's a civil action that the aggrieved party can take.
Statute.
Correct,
right? Yeah.
But it's disclosure, and we see disclosure in political advertising already. That's part of when WPRI runs an ad. You hear we approve this message, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the same idea. And the legislation actually has carve-outs to make sure that media, satire, anything that is considered to be protected free speech is carved out of the legislation. It's the first foray into trying to regulate AI in regard to elections information. And I think it's important because it targets bad actors who are using AI without disclosing that they are using it. And that's all it requires is a disclosure.
You have a bunch of bills pending. We're in the height of the legislative session season. We'll see what moves, what doesn't. Another bill I wanted to ask you about, Rep. Dawson, who actually inherited your old House seat after you ran for Secretary of State. He has one into, and it just passed the House, I believe, to protect election officials and poll workers if they receive threats. Have you seen that as a problem here so far, or is that more preemptive because of what we've seen in places like Georgia?
So we've seen harassment here. Nothing that raises the level of a threat. And this is specific legislation to a threat of bodily harm or death to a person or their immediate family members. And it's within the statute that protects elected officials. So we have not seen threats, but we have seen harassment, and we have seen people leave their jobs as elections administrators, and we have seen an issue with trying to get people to work on election day. And then, of course, yes, the national headlines are obvious, and folks have been threatened, and this continues. And so we want to make sure that we tell our folks who are working the polls, administering elections, that we have their backs, and we want to make sure that they are protected doing this incredibly important job.
All right, we're going to take a break on the program. When we come back, we're going to discuss the signature scandal that jolted the first congressional race last year. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Secretary of State Gregg Amore. Secretary, the nomination paper process for candidates was thrust into the spotlight, to say the least, in the special election for Congress last year and adversely impacted Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos's congressional campaign. You support legislation aimed at addressing anything from forgeries to other things on nomination papers. Sum up what it would do if it was passed.
So it's a procedural piece of legislation. In essence, when there is suspected forgery or fraud, the local canvassing authority would report that to the Board of Elections. The Board of Elections would look at that and then do their due diligence to make sure that every one of the 39 cities and towns is aware of what has happened in, let's say, Westerly. And then they would give the information in regard to what the campaign was and who the signature gatherer was, so that then there'd be increased scrutiny upon those sheets that were collected by that person.
So it sounds like it's taking kind of what happened ad hoc last year when the Matos signature started to be questions and creating a process for that.
Which eventually happened ad hoc, right?
Yeah,
the
right.
Board of Elections pushed back originally, and I came out immediately and said they should do this in real time.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be incumbent upon the media to point out to other jurisdictions that there's an issue with the campaign. So what this does is it clearly states that the jurisdictions must report immediately, and then the Board of Elections must relay that information to all the other boards. And that's really important. And we saw that play out in the Ramaswamy campaign and the No Labels campaign where there were forgeries. And unlike the Matos campaign situation, it was resolved within 24 hours because the locals knew what they were looking for, knew the campaigns to focus on, and it resolved itself.
So to some extent, do you think what happened, and we should say that just since her name's come up, Sabina Matos, is no sign she was directly involved, but it was her campaign team.
Right.
Do you think that was kind of a learning experience for everyone, even if it's painful for her that she was the one who had to teach the lesson?
Unfortunately, yeah. And she has been very clear with me that she wants a resolution to this. She wants a better process. You know, she was the victim of this. So yeah, I think campaigns have learned a lot, but I think we've learned a lot as well in that we need to be able to be quick enough to respond in real time to these situations as they occur.
It's 2024. Should there be a constitutional convention?
Yeah, I mean, it's incumbent upon our office to make sure that that is put to the voters if no member of the General Assembly proposes legislation. You know, I have concerns about a constitutional convention only because of the influx of outside money that comes in on specific issues. And I'm not sure if the folks who...
As opposed to every other campaign that happens during an election season? Yeah. How is that any different?
Well, I don't think that happens in every other campaign. I think that happens in certain campaigns, for sure, right? Governor's race, Senate's race. But these are issue-oriented campaigns, and I think you have an influx of money that can sway either way. I'm not theoretically opposed to it. In fact, I think every once in a while we need to do this. But I do have that concern. I guess the other concern I have is the information that the public gets. I think we have to do a better job of explaining what a constitutional convention is. I would say that if you polled Rhode Islanders, they really wouldn't understand what that is, because the last time we had one, you better know that.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, voters will decide, and we have seen repeatedly voters are really leery about changing the state's constitution, which at the end of the day, that's what this is.
That's
right?
correct. That's correct.
It would be put on a ballot, and at that point, wouldn't they get that education?
We hope. We hope. But this is a pretty quick process, right? And the legislature is responsible for creating a commission, which is a public body that would investigate, talk about what the process is. Again, philosophically, I'm not opposed. In fact, I think that's a good expansion of democracy. I do think that there are roadblocks to an open process that can be influenced by big money from outside of the state of Rhode Island.
And we should just remind people the reason we're even talking about this is because it's a requirement every 10 years that Rhode Island votes on it. So this is the year we have to discuss it whether people want to or not. It is. Talk about the state archives. This has been, I'd say nothing has gotten more attention that you've been pushing for since you became Secretary of State. You have this plan for a $101 million State Archives and History Center. It would be located on Smith Hill near the State House. The foundation of paying for it is this proposed $60 million bond question. I've talked to Speaker Shekarchi about it. He's sounded at least somewhat skeptical, not opposed necessarily, but not sure. We're getting right into budget season. How do you feel? You were in the House. How do you feel about your chances?
I was on the Finance Committee.
Yes.
You know, I don't think there's been any pushback against the project as a whole. I think most Rhode Islanders, when they hear about this, and all of the legislators that I've talked to know that this is essential. We have this responsibility to preserve these documents and to open this up to the public so they can share in Rhode Island's history. But you know, it's competing interests, and now we have a bridge situation that requires more input, and we just learned that it's more expensive than we thought it was originally. So there are competing interests, and there are other bond questions. You know, we're fighting this fight. We're working the legislature.
I've interviewed you for a long time. This is not the most optimistic answer I've ever heard from you.
Yeah, I just think, you know, look, we haven't given up on the idea. What we're doing is scaling back the proposal and telling the Speaker and the Senate President, look, we can build this thing probably for $70 million with the ability to add on to it. If the concern is its affordability right now, we can adjust and scale back. And we know that because our working group and my transition group looked at this process as a whole.
Secretary, we have 30 seconds left here. So I was just interested in this bill that you support, I believe, that would allow 16 to 17-year-olds to vote in school committee elections, right? Do you support?
So I support engaging young people in those processes, not necessarily through an election, because we have a big problem with that in that we run elections.
That's my question. Yeah, would it create a new ballot?
It would, and we can't do that. We cannot create a separate ballot in a general election. It's an impossibility. So we would have to run elections off years, and practically speaking, that's not going to happen. So what I support is, you know, electing those young people through an election within their school community and having them serve as a member of that committee.
Secretary of State Gregg Amore, thanks so much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure.
When we come back, he teased to it. We have a new price tag for the Washington Bridge. Target 12 investigator Eli Sherman joins us. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White alongside Ted Nesi. Joining us for a reporters roundtable is Target 12 investigator Eli Sherman. Gentlemen, we got some new numbers for the Washington Bridge replacement costs. Let's take a look at a quick breakdown here for our viewers. The estimate now is $41 million to demolish or tear down the bridge, then another $368 million to rebuild it, and they tacked on another estimated $46 million for what's called emergency costs, like shoring up the old bridge to tear it down. So you add all that up, that's $455 million. Eli, this is significantly higher than the first estimate.
Absolutely. Earlier this year, we were hearing between 250 to 300 million. All of a sudden,
in March they said that.
In
right?
March,
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, we're hearing over $450 million. You kind of wonder, okay, well, where are we going to be when we actually put this out to bid? I think what happened between now and then, or then and now, is that they went back to their consultants. They really took a closer look at what it would take to do all of these things appropriately, and found that their earlier estimates really were pretty undervalued.
Well, in that first estimate, I mean, in fairness, state officials themselves caveated that pretty heavily at the time as this is a back of the envelope. I remember I asked them for can I see the full spreadsheet that led to the 250 to 300, and it didn't exist.
Yeah.
They were like, it's just kind of.
So why put out a number at that point then?
So I've heard internally that there was debate about whether to put out a number for just this reason, because some of the folks in the governor's orbit did not necessarily want this headline of, oh my God, the cost has soared, when to some extent I don't even know if they feel like the cost soared. They feel like they put out some guess, and now they're giving you a harder number that maybe they can stand behind. But I just think if you think of where we were a couple months ago in the bridge crisis, to come out, say the thing has to come down, and have zero visibility into the cost, I think the pressure would have been enormous to come up with some number.
Well, go ahead.
Well, and I think another thing to keep in mind too is that they're still caveating this number. So
Sure.
they're still saying this is what we think it is, but keep in mind that these numbers do change, and at development, as we've covered forever, they change all the time.
The bids to fix and demolish the bridge are not in yet. That's what's going to tell us what actual companies think they can do, how much they need to do these projects.
And the state is hoping feds to the rescue here, right? What do they call it? A mega grant?
Mega grant, yep.
Or something, and that was something that was used for the Sagamore Bridge. But, they're trying to cobble together different federal funding. Is it they needed to put a figure in front of Jack Reed and say, hey, this is kind of what we're thinking we might need, and we need your help to get this money?
Yes, I think Reed, we've talked about it on the show. I think Reed's been pretty clear. He's ready to go to war in Washington and use all the levers he's accumulated over, decades in the Senate. But he needs a plan. He can say to USDOT or internally in the Appropriations Committee, I need this much money, or here's our plan, here's what we need, because you can't even put in applications for some of these big USDOT things like the mega grant without a plan with a number on it to request the amount. So I think, not to say it's just Jack Reed, but I certainly think Senator Reed has been, even publicly, kind of saying we need a firm number so we can start to work on this.
And I think that on the state level too, they're not going with the assumption that they're definitely going to get that federal money. They're not going to hear until this fall whether or not they're going to be approved for that grant. So they need to start planning now, which is why they put an amendment into the state budget for additional money this year for the bridge, because if we get to October and the feds say, no, sorry, we gave that to Baltimore,
right.
We have to, change course, because one way or the other, we got to pay for the bridge.
Well, and they're looking at Garvey funds, which is like borrowing ahead of the federal money you get for infrastructure projects down the road.
At a time of high interest rates.
Yes.
I know Speaker Shekarchi's already, he said to Patrick Anderson of the Projo the other day, raising an eyebrow about whether this much borrowing is the right course of action. I think we need to understand, too, what does this do to the longer-term plan for transportation projects in Rhode Island? If you move this much money in various ways toward the Washington Bridge,
you can't fix the other thing.
What other stuff are you not going to fix? Are you going to delay, et cetera? And by the way, most lawmakers don't represent the Washington Bridge zone. They're going to want, well, wait a minute, if this Coventry Bridge isn't getting done for 5 years because of this, do I want this plan? So lots of questions, I think. But the clock is ticking because the budget bill is going to come out.
We have 3 minutes left, and I want to talk about Woonsocket. Eli, you and I spent the day in that city on Thursday. We learned that new leadership there in the city council is grappling with a headache with their property tax rolls. And the mayor told you that residents should expect their taxes to go up.
Yeah, I talked to the mayor, Christopher Beauchamp, yesterday, or I should say on Thursday, and he was frank about it. He said, listen, we're going to have some serious revenue problems this year because of these settlements that we have to enter into with different companies who were getting essentially overtaxed for years. And he said as a result of that, everyone has to sort of pony up across the city to make up for that hole.
We have time to do this. I asked City Councilman Dan Gendron how much a hit this entire property assessment situation means so far for taxpayers. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Well, I will tell you this. I don't have an exact number, but I will tell you that since Channel 12 broke the friends and family land deal on Mendon Road, and the mayor then resigned because of your story, since that time, Mr. Pagliarini has identified, I think, in excess of $3 million in abatements. So that's $3 million. Some of it is for money to be paid back, and it absolutely is a reduction in potential revenue going forward.
I mean, that's $3 million he's estimating with all of the mess right now, and yet we know there are ongoing discussions with Rhode Island Energy. They have a big piece of property there that they feel has been overtaxed, with the for-profit hospital Prospect, right?
Landmark.
Landmark, thank you. And so it's pretty clear that this is potentially going to get worse.
Well, it's fascinating to see, as Lisa Baldelli-Hunt, the former mayor, had an iron grip on power in a lot of ways in City Hall for the last 10 years, and then of course she suddenly resigned after that story we did that he mentioned last fall, and now the tide has gone out, and you see. Granted, I've covered politics long enough to know that sometimes someone exits and everyone says everything they ever did was bad and terrible and it's their mess and I'm cleaning it up. But at the same time, it is clear that there were some serious problems under the hood, and as soon as she no longer had control of the mayor's office and the flow of information, that's starting to come out now. And I certainly think it's going to have a big effect on the mayor's race coming up this fall, especially if big tax bills are going out, because Beauchamp wants the job.
And if the city thought that they were correct about these assessments, they probably wouldn't be settling, because what we're talking about here is from a $16 million assessment to a $9 million assessment. That is just an extraordinary number.
$7 million difference on those assessments, and that that's less revenue going to the city, and of course they have to settle and pay that money
at
back.
A time when commercial assessments are falling everywhere post-COVID.
Right. Eli Sherman, thanks so much. Ted Nesi, thank you for joining us. And I want to wish every mom out there, most of you are watching on a Sunday, a happy Mother's Day. We love you all. Thanks for watching Newsmakers. We'll see you next week.